for its management.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the very first Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. From the Boxtrot Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios, I'm Joe Mangiacotti. That's right. Going forward, we will bookend the weekends every Friday and Monday, and we're continuing with our Sunday morning talk block. I'm in at 6 o'clock. Mike Wade comes in at 7. Peter Blute at 9, takes us to 12 noon. So that is staying intact. But thank you for joining me in the Post Meridian. That is 1 o'clock on Mondays and Fridays. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. We do have our text line up and running as well at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Text us like you would anybody else. You can also email text Joe on the radio at gmail.com. Exactly what you're doing. It appears on the same screen in real time. Don't forget, you can tell Alexa, play WCRN, and she'll do it, no questions asked. We're live streaming on the TuneIn app. In this particular show, I live stream it with a camera in studio. Not a big production, folks, just a camera in the studio. But the audio is there on our YouTube channel, The Joe Mangiacotti Show, Facebook and Twitter at Joe Mangi Show, my LinkedIn under my name, obviously, and even on Twitch TV at Joe M Show. So many, many ways to listen to the show. And I'm glad to be here on this Friday afternoon. Flying the board, Ted A. Hey, Ted A. How are you, sir?
So far, so good. Thanks for bringing me in, Joe.
I can't get over the haircut, man. You starting to look like me.
All of them.
You got to say, all you need is the fedora, and they wouldn't be able to tell us apart, man.
Well, that's why I've got the headset on.
So that actually, from now on, I want you to walk out first. They'll mistake you for me. Give me a chance to aim. All right, we got a great Friday show lined up. Joining us in segment 2 will be Horace Cooper from Project 21. Horace has been with us before, right? He's the co-chairman of Project 21 National Advisory Board. We'll talk a little bit about the State of the Union address as well as Ukraine going on. And obviously, you know, what's going on in Ukraine is on everybody's mind. We're watching it. We have all the armchair pundits now. Everybody's paying attention. None of us paid a lot of attention to a lot of the red flags that were going on for months and months. You know, Putin came out with that essay that he read, which was just, if it's not alarming you, I think you got to go back and watch him read that again. But this is a campaign of terror. You got the Russian military. It's one of the world's largest and strongest forces on the planet. On the other side, you have Ukraine, a medium-sized country whose infrastructure is being destroyed daily here. We just had this issue with the largest nuclear plant in Europe has been under attack by the Russians, dropping bombs on a nuclear plant, folks. Now, they have control of it now. There was a gunfight there. The manager posted out, he's very concerned. He said, hey, if this goes bad, this is 10 times Chernobyl. I'm venturing to say that most people listening to my voice remembers Chernobyl very well. There are some people out there of a certain age or younger that might not understand what I mean or remember what Chernobyl is and what it was to us. But it was a horrible, horrible nuclear accident, and it irradiated that entire section of the Ukraine and into Russian Belarus. It just made it unlivable, and they locked it down. So the fact of bombing a nuclear plant is in violation of, well, war is in violation, but it's just in violation of what's acceptable actions in the course of a war. Russia intensified its bombing on Ukraine's 2 largest cities, Kyiv and Kharkiv. I'm not sure. Kharkiv, I guess you pronounce it, Kyiv, from planes and missile launchers stationed outside the cities. Now, the thing is, a lot of these missiles, folks, are now coming from within Ukraine because they've been able to come in and set up in it. And if you're looking at the map, you're seeing that the north and the east and the south, of course, the south being Crimea, which he annexed in 2014 with very little resistance, or even resistance from the United States of America. But Barack Obama sent pillows and blankets or something to that effect. So the onslaught continues against our friends, the Ukrainians, and it's just, what do we do now? What do we do now? What are we supposed to do now? I think Putin wanted to soften NATO. NATO was a lot softer a few weeks ago, folks, or a couple months ago. If anything, this has solidified NATO.
1 minute.
And in the first time in many, many years, you see all of the nations of NATO getting onto the same page. So we'll talk about, lines are open and available to talk about Ukraine, what's going on there. We see an incredible number of businesses boycotting. Now, these are businesses outside
30 seconds.
of the official government policies, but deciding to boycott Ukraine on its own. All right, we're going to take our first break here on the debut show, Friday show anyway, of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Come back on the other side. We'll be joined by co-chair Horace Cooper from Project 21. We'll get his take on Ukraine and the State of the Union, the very first one from President Joe Biden. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, 508-871-7000. Stick with us.
Say hello to your guest.
Hey, Horace.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for taking time out and joining me today. This is the actual Friday debut of the Joe Mangiacotti Show as we transition from weekends to weekdays starting in March. So this is the first Friday show that we've had, and thank you for joining me.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
That is great to hear.
Awesome. Yeah. So Judy told you, right? I wanted to touch on Joe Biden's first State of the Union, and we'll
Yes.
touch on Ukraine.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So maybe I'll start with the State of the Union, and we'll move that into the Ukraine issue.
Okay.
All right. Obviously, I'm going to start out with asking you your take and impression as this president in his first State of the Union. What's your overall impression? Then we can get into any missed opportunities that he has there. The fact that Eddie is the solution to the problem here, that kind of thing. And his missteps, like not talking about BLM, not talking about the rise in crime, inflation.
Now you understand that we do have a time constraint today.
Oh, absolutely. Right. We'll go to the
We
bottom.
don't want to be too ambitious.
I know, but it's always better to have more planned than not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Indeed.
let's see where the Union takes us and how much we can even talk about Ukraine. We might not even get
Okay.
to it. Awesome.
Sounds great.
And where are you now? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Texas today.
Whoa. Okay. All right. Are you down there to see the governor?
I'm not in Austin. I'm in a smaller town.
All right.
You got your 10-gallon hat on?
It's cowboy boots here, not hats.
Right. They take their boots very seriously down there, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
1 minute, gentlemen.
That show Yellowstone has done wonders for the Western wear.
Ah, yes, indeed. Indeed.
Makes me want
So
to
how are you
go to
liking hosting the program during the weekdays?
Oh, I love it. It's tomorrow will be the first Saturday in like 15 years I haven't had to get up at 3:30 a.m.
Okay,
Well,
here
look
we
at
go.
that. Okay.
Here comes the
Here we come.
promo.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and after all these years of taking your calls and breaking down and setting straight the twisted doublespeak hypocrisy of today's political landscape, Common Sense Conversation for the Common Sense Citizen has moved. After years of greeting you on Saturday mornings, we've moved to the post-meridian. I'm asking you to join me now, Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Same great talk, same great calls, but don't worry, I'm still greeting you on Sunday mornings at 6 a.m. Your solid Sunday morning political talk is still intact. The Joe Mangiacotti Show. Bookend your weekend, Monday and Fridays, 1 p.m., Sunday at 6 a.m.
You're listening to the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN and our affiliates. To talk to Joe, dial 508-871-7000, and you can text Joe on air in real time at 617-297-8388, or email textjoe on the radio at gmail.com. And now back to the most interesting man in the world. When he drives the car off a lot, the value goes up. Common sense talk for the common sense citizen.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to the second segment of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Again, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And joining us, as promised, let me invite into the conversation Horace Cooper, who's co-chairman of the Project 21 and National Advisory Board. Good afternoon, Mr. Horace Cooper.
Hey, it's always great to come on the program.
Thank you very much for joining us. I did want to, get to it. We only have a few minutes, and we want to cover a few things, and I wanted to start out with the President's State of the Union address, as first given as the 46th president. First of all, your overall take and impression on it, Horace.
Well, my big response was, thank God this was the second shortest speech in 150 years. If he had droned on and on and on, well past the president's bedtime, all of us would have had to have been miserable, but thankfully, he almost set the record for the shortest speech ever, and that was set by Nixon in 1972 in the midst of Watergate. So my big takeaway is, thankfully, it wasn't too super long. However, the president still is under the false impression that all the problems that he has created, his policies have exacerbated, can be resolved by just getting the taxpayer's checkbook and writing a big check, regardless of whether or not there's any money in the Treasury to back it up. So if we can't pay it today, that's okay. Our children and grandchildren will be able to pay it. The president seems to still be under the illusion he just write checks and all of the problems that he has been causing and making worse can be resolved. That's my second biggest takeaway.
Wow. On that note, too, I noticed that the viewership was the worst it was in the 30 years, right? He was at 38 million. Barack Obama was 45.5, and Trump was 48 million on their first State of the Union. And I would think that given the situation in Ukraine, in the world right now, in a little bit of a turmoil, that increased the number of people watching it. And I wonder what the numbers would have been if we weren't in the Ukrainian situation.
Well, absolutely. I think the numbers would have been lower if we weren't in the middle of the Ukrainian situation, because the American people were hoping that they were going to see some sort of resolve from this president. I actually worked on Capitol Hill, and I have sat on the floor of the House of Representatives chamber in and during actual State of the Union addresses. I do know this. They are typically 3, sometimes 4 months in advance planned. They are laid out in a way to highlight the accomplishments of the president and to emphasize some of the issues that he plans to try to promote. The Ukrainian atrocities have, in fact, upset the apple cart. And now the president and all of his planners had to insert in a discussion about Ukraine. Here's the problem, though. Even if you pulled out the part about Ukraine, you still have what looks like a very, very poor job in coming up with accomplishments, achievements, and an ongoing agenda. I would have said that he was playing counterfeit conservative looking to get reelected. He pretended that he's in favor of the police. But his definition of quote, fund the police or refund the police is actually, let's saddle the police with investigations to make sure that they're race sensitive. Let's go through undue excess training that shackle them and limit their abilities. Let's have more funding so that police officers can be investigated. That's actually not how you promote law enforcement. That's how you hinder and harm law enforcement. And he made several similar instances. I called it the Marie Antoinette moment. Most Americans show up at the gas station and they're wondering, do I need to talk to my loan officer for permission to figure out if I can afford this? Am I going to have to get a second note on my house, my mortgage? And this president says, oh, have you been suffering? I have a solution. I am going to give 500,000 new electric car charging parts. Well, guess what? The richest of the richest of the richest buy electric cars. It's about a 1.5% take nationwide, and it's highly concentrated on the East and the West Coast. So Marie Antoinette said, oh, you're hungry? You're starving? Why aren't you eating the cake? This president says, oh, is gasoline price too high? Why don't you roll your $140,000 electric car over to my charging stations? This does nothing to solve the problems that he created, that he's making worse, and he's trying to take credit for trying to fix.
No, absolutely. That totally, I get that 100%. Use your electric car. But he also seemed to be trying to flip the script on a couple of things, right? When he came up with the fund the police, although he didn't get into that too much, he almost sounded Republican-ish a little conservative stuff there, and I'm sure he took.
Well, I got to push back just a little bit. He did say the magic words, but it's like when you're at church and it's either Easter or Christmas, and you see a bunch of people at church that don't really come regularly. So they have to pull out the hymn book so that they can read what the songs actually are, and then they try to sing along, but they don't know the words. They're out of tune, out of sync. He didn't say, I believe law enforcement is amazing and valuable. What he said was, we don't support defund the police, but we're going to give more money. And if you look at his budget, the more money is to investigate police. The more money is to micromanage police. The more money is to shackle police. Remember, he's holding the hymnal. He's sitting there in church, but he doesn't actually understand what goes on, and his heart's not really in it.
100%. The response given by Governor Kim Reynolds, right, of Iowa, I thought was great. It put her on a national platform. I don't think a lot of people maybe knew who she was or heard her speak before this, but there were also 2 Democratic responses to the State of the Union. Isn't that a first?
So, yes, it is. Oh, of course it is. Under the Reagan administration, we started this idea that the opposition party needed to have a chance to express their views. I remember I was a little kid, and I think there was a wine cooler. It was called Bartleby and James, and they had these 2 old codgers right after one of Reagan's State of the Union addresses to give a rebuttal, and you couldn't tell what they were saying. They were mumbling. They weren't clear. Well, the left has decided not only must they give the opening argument, we call it the State of the Union address, but they got to give the rebuttal and the rebuttal to the rebuttal. And it is a case of the far left hand not knowing what the left hand is up to. It is amazing to listen to the unbelievable and unremitting request that indicts America. They call America racist. They call America bigoted. And of course, America's cheap because America isn't willing to triple the debt load that it already owns to accomplish their ends. This is what passes for conversation in America today. I don't think it's going to work.
No. And at times, Horace, I felt like somebody had dropped the speech before they went on and picked it up and shuffled it back together, but didn't really put it in order because it was a little, just
incoherent is the word you're looking for.
Okay, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. And at one point, he says, simply makes the statement about we have to secure the border. Does not get into the failures there. Doesn't get into the fact that on day one he stopped the already paid for construction of the wall and he left these gaps, and that the stay in Mexico policy, in other words, all of the wonderful Trump policies that had given us a relatively secure border, at least a manageable border, he eliminated basically day one. And now he throws that term out there and just that's it. And then on to something else, very non-connected. And it gets an applause, by the way, but then he leaves everybody hanging.
Well, the president is a lot like the man accused of murdering his mother and father, and he goes to the court and he asks for permission. Please have grace on me. I'm an orphan.
Yeah.
This president, his policies opened up the border. They didn't accidentally open up. It wasn't a case of, well, we don't understand what happened, how it happened. He was condemned. He was criticized. There have been protests. The local governors all have said, stop doing what you're doing. If you're in a hole and you're digging, one of the best things you can do, stop. And this president stands up in the State of the Union and then tells us that he has identified the problem of the border and he's got a plan. God hope that it's not the continuation of the same thing. All he'd have to do is announce that he supports the policies that were working, that were put in place by Donald Trump. It's not hard. It's not an intellectual challenge. It doesn't have to be original. American people are going to say, oh, well, you didn't come up with that. They're going to say, thank God this works. This president wants us to believe that he's going to have little drones flying around in the sky and satellites that are going to do all of the things that we could have been doing already. Oh, and by the way, even if your little timid, worthless solution is being presented, why didn't you try to do it yesterday? Why do you wait till the State of the Union to announce it?
Yeah, good point. One more thing on the State of the Union, because he talks about his tax breaks and that nobody making under $400,000 will be taxed. Meanwhile, inflation is pushing 8%. It was 7.5% last month. The gas is going through the roof, which I've always maintained, Horace, that the cost of gas is in essence a tax, and it's the most unfair to the middle class, the working class, because we don't have a choice. We have to buy the gas because we have to go to work to make the paycheck that we're surviving from paycheck to paycheck from. We don't have the option not to do it. And if you're in that 1% or even 10%, you're not going to really notice that extra 120 bucks a month. But to the working class, paycheck to paycheck, man, that is the cable's gone, the kids' vacation's gone, cheerleading or football, it sacrifices something. And he's just not accurate on what he's saying about that, because according to all reports, that over the next 10 years, 95% of people under $400,000 will in fact pay more taxes.
Yeah, well, the president says not one thin dime is going to be assessed in taxes against any American who makes under $400K. Well, he's right. It's not one thin dime. It's 100,000 thin dimes, but not one. He's definitely accurate that it's not one. He is taxing gasoline. He is taxing cigarettes. He is taxing the ability to get a walker or a cane. He is taxing plastic surgery. His bill, not what was imposed on him, what was pushed on him. His request in his proposal says these are the kinds of things he wants to do.
Yeah. We only have a couple of minutes left. I wanted to actually touch on Ukraine. We have Putin's propaganda message out there telling the people of Russia that he's denazifying Ukraine when its president is Jewish. Mayor Pete's out there telling us that the gas and oil energy, it's a short-term problem. So the annihilation of the people of Ukraine is a short-term problem to his long-term green goal here. And in fact, NATO has been strengthened by all of this. What kind of pickle are we really in here, and how many options do the United States have, especially with Biden and making the calls?
Well, one of the challenges that we have is the leader of our government is incompetent. The leader of our government doesn't have a vision. Our Constitution embodies the ideas of the Declaration of Independence, and they apply it to everybody all on the planet. What that means is it does not mean that it is America's job to solve every injustice. It does mean, though, that it's every citizen's job everywhere on the planet to see to it that the government that they live under represents and recognizes their fundamental rights. We as Americans should give voice to that, and we should charitably support. If that means giving missiles, if that means giving guns, if that means giving material support, yes, we should. But our president could have acted much sooner.
Yeah.
He could have done more, and he didn't. And this has made the problem worse.
Absolutely. We're running out of time, Horace. I want to, again, thank you for taking time out. I know you're down there in Texas, and this is taking time away from what you have to do. Appreciate it greatly. People can find you on Project 21 site.
Yeah, check us out at www.nationalcenter.org and follow us on Twitter at Project 21 News.
Excellent. Horace, enjoy the rest of
10
your day,
seconds.
man. Thank you so much, and we'll have you back again shortly.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, Horace. That was Horace Cooper, folks. We got to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Stick with us. I got a text saying that our 7,000 number isn't working.
Full Service Radio, AM 830,
Phone
WCRN,
number
Worcester,
7,000 isn't
Metro
working.
West.
With an AP News Minute, a Western official says a huge Russian military convoy
There
in
you go.
Ukraine advancing on Kyiv has made little progress for several days. Multiple Western officials have said Russia's invasion of Ukraine has advanced more slowly than planned, with Russian forces meeting stiff Ukrainian resistance and encountering logistical problems. The offensive continues
Wait a
on
minute.
cities in Ukraine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken
Something's
says
wrong
this is
because
Vladimir Putin's
It might only
war
be,
of
the
choice.
bank might not be working.
Unjustified, and a war that is having horrific
No,
horrific
watch.
consequences
508-871-7000.
for mothers, for fathers, for children. We see the images on TV, and it has to stop.
Russian troops seized the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe after a middle-of-the-night attack that set it on fire and briefly raised worldwide fears of a
that's not
catastrophe.
me.
Officials say no radiation was released. I'm Ed Donahue.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm Vicki Graffin. Here's your latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. After a bright but cold day, we are going to cool off back into the teens overnight tonight. At least we have changes on the way for the weekend. Saturday will be a little bit warmer, temperatures in the upper 30s to low 40s. And then we are looking at increasing clouds late in the day. By Sunday, we're going to see highs in the upper 50s, but it also comes with some rain. I'm Vicki Graffin. You can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive, weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Another fabulous Friday in New England. I'm Ted A. It is March 4th. The super retail operator Amazon is closing 4 physical locations in Massachusetts: Dedham, Linfield, Natick, and Millbury. The international internet colossal is also closing 62 other stores across the United States. The intent announced is to focus on the grocery business. The company has had a bad experience with the purchase and operation of the Whole Foods market chain. The plan is to develop the Amazon Fresh and the convenience store concept Amazon Go. There are 2 known grocery stores being constructed in Saugus and Braintree. There are already 33 Whole Foods facilities doing business in Massachusetts. In this world, money makes it go round. Some may disagree. However, the self-appointed experts on happiness have determined that the minimum salary to achieve happiness in the Bay State is about $140,000 per year. In spite of this estimation, the average annual household income in Massachusetts is around $81,000. The WCRN News is brought to you by John the Roofer, a leader in the roofing and home improvements business for more than 70 years. Call 866-906-ROOF.
30
or go to
seconds.
the internet and see johntheroofer.com.
That includes your rejoin.
Good morning, folks. Joe Mangiacotti here. I know it's Saturday morning and you're expecting the Joe Mangiacotti Show. That's- No worries. Why are you Mondays and doing Fridays at 1 p.m. Back tomorrow That's morning, for 6 Saturday a.m. morning. The tradition continues.
You're listening to the Joe Mangiacotti Show on
They're
Powerhouse
very
Station
labeled.
WCRN and our
Yeah,
affiliates.
they are.
To talk to Joe, dial
Go read them.
508-871-7000.
It says
and you can
Saturday
text
right
Joe
on
air
it.
in real time at
Right, right,
617-297-8388. Or
Not only
email
run on
text Joe on the
Saturday, it's,
radio at gmail.com.
you gotta be more
And now
specific.
back to the
It's
most
in the email.
interesting man in the world. His tears cure cancer. Too bad he never cries. Common sense talk for the common sense citizen.
Welcome back to the second half of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. I'm Joe Mangiacotti from the Boxtrap Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. It's a tongue twister. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Thanks to Horace Cooper for joining us. He's a very busy man. Project 21 has been part of our guest list for many years, and they do a great job over there. The interesting thing that I'm wanted to mention about President Zelensky, right? Comedian to Churchill, basically. This guy was a comedian. He even did a movie where he ended up as president of the country in the movie, and sure enough, it happened in real life. But he's become a symbol of resistance to the Russian invasion. And it's considered the largest conventional military operation since World War II. And this is something, he assumed this role long after cracking jokes and acting on the big screen. He's 44 years old, actor, comedian. He assumed the office in May of 2019. He's facing the biggest challenge of a relatively short political career. And many have agreed that he has really risen to the occasion here. He stayed and fought. Remember, we offered him a ride. We offered him the chance to get out of there. He said, "I need ammunition. I don't need a ride." He didn't stick millions or billions of dollars into a helicopter and screw the moment things look bad. He has a hit list out on him, right? Putin has him at the top, has his family, and they're moving him around. I don't know who's moving him around. I don't know if it's private security. I don't know if it's his military. But if you want to see him, you get in the bag over the head and driven around town for a half hour or so. And he popped up a couple of times the other day, including a press conference in the middle of the war. And he asked certain reporters, he gave them 50 plus minutes in a bunker, but in person, face to face. And these videos that he is posting has unified and energized the people of Ukraine. And as husbands and brothers and sons either bring their family to the border and return, or set them off in hopes of sending them west to safety to Poland or wherever they're off to, they return to fight. They're handing out guns at the police station like candy. Relatively limited amount of training, if any. But every man of able body is fighting in Ukraine. Now, this is maybe a problem because it then presents Putin the ability to again twist and bastardize the situation by saying, well, if they're picking up arms, they are all military combatants, and therefore I can bomb and shell citizens in places where citizens are because they're picking up arms. His propaganda is numbing in what he's saying. And then Russian soldiers that have been captured, some of them very willingly, and some of the messages intercepted going back to their moms. They're telling their family, Russian soldiers, telling their families, I did not know what we were doing. We were told that this was an exercise. We were told that we were just going to do one thing, and then we're all of a sudden ordered to cross the sovereign border of another nation and fire on our brothers. That convoy that stretches 40 miles, the different reports that we're getting back on that, everything from it's not moving because tires are blown because they didn't even do the maintenance on the vehicles before they sent them out. So poor tires combined with heat and cold and mud, they're blown out and they're stuck there. There's reports of the soldiers emptying their own fuel tanks so the vehicles can't move because they don't want to roll forward. But it's not going to stop Putin. And if he has to pull able-bodied fighting men from one end of Russia to the other, he will do it. Can he step back at this point without losing face? What say you? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. Ken has been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, welcome to the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. First time you call on the Friday show.
Good afternoon, Joe, and glad to be a local first caller to the show on Friday.
Well, technically first caller. I mean, Horace was a guest.
Local, I said.
Yeah. Yeah. But he was a guest. He wasn't a caller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he's always good.
What's on your mind?
I'll touch just briefly on the topic that you brought up before I cross over to the other one. I see from the news this while eating lunch that there may be cousins of mine traveling from Belarus south to help the Ukrainians as opposed to fight for Russia. So that gives me great pleasure.
Wow.
My grandparents immigrated from that region about 110 years ago. So
really,
whatever parts they have to add to freedom, I endorse.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about doing the Ancestry.com or the 123andMe thing to see what is happening. If you have any ancestors in that area.
Yeah, there probably is a way of tracking it down.
Yeah.
In fact, the people that they were interviewing were from the Minsk area, which is where my grandparents left.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was planning on getting into is just the later in the show here is, there are the sanctions going on, the official government stuff, but a lot of businesses are boycotting anything Russia, right? We saw FIA, the soccer and the games and the athletes, and then they say, well, they can participate, but they can't, no national anthem. They can't have their flag. They cannot be identified as Russian. Banks are doing things, Coca-Cola. I mean, there's just Nike stopped Apple. So there's a whole list of companies. In other words, Russia is a toxic business to do with, entity to do business with right now.
But Joe, on that topic, we have to be really careful. I'm seeing anything with the name Russia being condemned. So literally in New York City, there's a Russian tea room.
Yeah.
That, well, you go to the DuckDuckGo Russia tea room, and the first thing they show is say, hey, the business, obviously they're very rich. So the liberals love they think they got a twofer on this one, right? Well, they were Soviet defectors from 95 years ago.
Yeah.
These people are our friends.
Yeah.
So let's be careful about just, you get to the point.
No, it has to be done with common sense and a little bit of intelligence to it here. You're right. Just the word Russia does not have to be. I mean, even if you look back at market in the 1960s, the anti-Russian sentiment was still prevalent. And it was the Madison Avenue the madmen on Madison Avenue who invented the drink, the Moscow Mule. And that was nothing but a market. It was Russian vodka who said vodka sales plummeted post World War II. And it was madmen who said, okay, they came up with a bunch of vodka drinks, including the Moscow Mule, to sell Russian vodka because people just wouldn't drink vodka post World War II. We got to be careful not to hurt those Russian businesses, which are usually in the United States, people who defected or, immigrated or migrated from Russia to come to this country to assimilate and become citizens. So you don't want to hurt them in their business. But for these international businesses, cutting off doing business with what Ronald Reagan nailed it, evil empire, then that's fine today. That's fine today. Now, what I'm wondering is CCP, how much is China going to be watching businesses and entities that boycott Russia, stop selling in Russia, stop selling to Russia, stop buying from Russia? And will China punish them in their own way? Because they do this, right? How many examples do we have to look at to solidify that? NBA. What coach makes a comment in support of Hong Kong, right? They go out of their minds.
Time for a break.
Right? Enos Freedom. He makes a statement. Celtics aren't showed in China anymore. Ken, I got to take a quick break at 45 minutes after the hour here on the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. 508-871-7000. We'll be back in just a moment. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one, and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own, and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com, and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Box Drop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508.
So, Joe, let me get this straight. You gave me a promo just for Saturday?
Yeah.
Come on, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Because
listen,
off.
stop.
I don't want to
take
do this while I'm
promos.
on the air.
I
now.
take promos and I put them in a rotation so
Right.
that you don't get the same one every time.
This is going out on streaming. I'll talk to you later about it.
Please and thank you. Respect is everything.
Yes, please show some.
You want to go around?
I'm on the middle of the air. I'm not doing this
Okay,
now.
well, listen when I speak, and I'll show you the same respect, okay? It's a two-way street, not an avenue.
Exactly.
And you can text Joe on air in real time at 617-297-8388 or email textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. And now back to the most interesting man in the world. He brings a knife to a gunfight just to make the odds even. Common sense
man.
talk for the common sense citizen.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. What say you? The boycotts that we see coming across from all kinds of businesses, from banking to sneaker companies, the day after Russia invaded Ukraine, excluding Russian banks from SWIFT was described by one EU minister as a very last resort. Now it's happening under EU sanctions. Even Russian banks, including VTB, right, the second largest, will be excluded from the Belgian-based SWIFT, the bank messaging system. So that's, I don't know, it's like that Cirrus, right? Basically, it's how the banks talk to each other, message each other, transfer money. yes, there's some concern. Well, what if we do this? And we know India is working on a version of their own money messaging system in the banks. And what if if Putin decides to go with China and change it to the yen? What will that do to the American dollar? Will the rest of the world follow? I doubt it. But banking, the oligarchs, right? The United Kingdom government, right? Blacklisted a handful of business people already subject to U.S. sanctions and claimed to be preparing a hit list. Right? They grabbed a $600 million yacht the other day. Geez, I hate when that happens. But they're grabbing the bank accounts. They're grabbing the yachts. These are all open to it. How much will these oligarchs put up with it before they themselves say this has got to change? Which brings me to we have Lindsey Graham, who had to backtrack his comment from the other night to this morning. He had to backtrack it when he called on the Russian people to assassinate Putin. Now, he backtracked this morning and say, well, no, let's arrest him. To have a sitting senator call for the assassination of the head of state, probably not the smartest thing. 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Joel's been waiting patiently. Hey, Joel. Good afternoon. Welcome to the first edition of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti.
Hi, Mr. Mangiacotti. How you doing? What's going on every day during the week?
Yeah, me too. Write a letter.
I will. Hey, listen, I got to say one thing about the Ruskies. I'm sure they're not doing the Kazatsky over there right now.
I don't know what that's a dance, I'm assuming.
Ever seen people do the Kazatsky?
Yeah, that's the lower, right? When they go low and they kick their legs out.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. All Slavic people, even me being a Jew, we saw that at Jewish weddings growing up. Man, I'll be honest, when I was in my 20s and 30s, God, I could do a mean Kazatsky,
really?
Let me tell you that.
My best day, I don't know if I could ever have done that. I assume, man, I guess if you grow up with it, Joel, right, and you're taught it, you probably can and you do.
Yes, yes, it's like anything else, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, I called about you. You mentioned Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think is protecting him? It's the company, a.k.a. the CIA. Of course, it's not the Ukrainian security force. The CIA is involved.
Yeah, that's why I kind of put it out there. And I was tongue-in-cheek when I said, I wonder who's doing that. Because, it's not his people. And it's right. It's either our CIA or our contracted type people.
Exactly.
Because those, Joel, as well as I do, they know how to do that stuff. They know how to keep this guy alive. They know how to also make people unalive. Yes. But they also know how to keep people alive.
Joe, the Russians themselves, well, I'm going back to the Tsars, I'm going back to the former Soviet Union. They've always been great at assassination. And I just heard what he said about Lindsey Graham. I wouldn't have retract that statement about what he said. I mean,
I don't think he wanted to. I think he was kind of forced to because of the backlash. But I'm telling you, I don't think Lindsey Graham wanted to do it.
Yeah, but Joe, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts about a no-fly zone over the country?
All right, this is a great question because we would be presented with the inevitable shooting down of an aircraft, right? Eventually, an American aircraft and a Soviet aircraft would come face to face. So the question is, can we just get them the aircraft? We have the Warthog, right? The A-10 Thunderbolt. Why can't we just get their pilots out of there, load them in the A-10s, rip off the American flag, and let them fly them back? Yeah,
that's a very salient point.
No.
But I'll tell you right now, all the bellicose comments coming from Putin, you and I both know, we study politics. I mean, the man is afraid of the United States. And when people in the Biden administration say there's a possibility of course, Russian pilots engaging U.S. pilots or NATO airmen and women in general, the fact is it's not going to start World War III. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And with all due respect to Iraq and Afghanistan, this country still suffers from the Vietnam syndrome. If you get my drift.
No, I absolutely get that. But one quick question before I have to let you go there. What do you think about Putin's saber rattling with the putting his nuclear armaments on high alert? What was that? Is that just a bluff? Just I'm gonna poke you in the chest. I'm a bully, or what?
That's all it is. I mean, of course, you're making a reference to his tactical nuclear weapons.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Now, it's just talk, but I believe he has to be taking care of business in the Kremlin. I don't know if it's going to happen.
He hasn't been in the Kremlin for 2 years. You know this, right?
I know. I mean, yes.
I mean, he literally has
COVID-19.
isolated
Right.
himself. He has no
Yeah, 'cause of
access to
COVID.
social
Right.
media. He doesn't let
No.
anybody see him, right? If you want to see
Right.
him, you got to be, quarantined for a couple of weeks. Then they bring you, but they spray you with chemicals, which never let the Russians spray you with chemicals. I mean, this is a guy who put poison in somebody's underwear. All right. You don't want to be subject to that.
So smart. You know how many attempts the Germans made on Adolf Hitler's life? About 25 to 30 attempts, and every attempt failed.
Yeah.
Every attempt on Hitler's life failed. We all knew about that years and years ago, right? I mean, can you believe so many assassination attempts on Hitler?
Hey, also on Castro. Joe, also on Castro. People.
Yes, on Fidel.
Many attempts, including our CIA.
Yes, on Fidel.
Yeah,
Yes.
on Fidel Castro. So they failed. But I have to thank you for the call. I'm going to have to hold you there because I've got lines filled up here. Joel, thank you for the call and thank you for listening. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation on the Friday edition, the very first Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Let me go to Mark in Worcester, who's been waiting patiently. Good afternoon, Mark. Hey, you look marvelous.
Yeah, I don't feel marvelous. This morning I went down to get a coffee, right? Large coffee, right? Morning ritual. Wind, rain, snow, it don't make no difference. I'm going. So I get that, what are we getting? Any gas. So I go and I get the coffee and I come out and I look at the gas pump just to make sure that I was getting the number right. Regular gas, Worcester, $3.85 a gallon. That means if you got a 20-gallon tank, you're gonna drop $77.
Jeez.
Now people will go in, right, and they'll say, "Oh Jesus, well he got $77." Like, Jesus, what am I gonna do, right? So they put $10 worth in to keep them going on fumes. It doesn't make any difference because next week what you're paying $3.85 for is going to be $4.
Exactly.
So
Might as well
instead of
fill up
paying
today.
77, right, because what you're paying $77 for this Friday, next Friday, you might be paying $80 plus for it.
Yeah. Mark, when I go down a quarter now, I fill back up. I keep my tank filled all the time. I don't let it go beyond a quarter. First of all, because I just don't want to be stuck given anything that could happen with not a lot of gas in my car. But the other thing is, I might as well pay for that gas today because it's going to be more tomorrow. So even though I'm stopping every other day, it's worth it.
Or we might get hit by a cyber attack and you pull and nothing comes out of the spigot at the gas pump.
Or the card won't work. So now we got to go back to cash, right?
Yeah. I'm waiting for the cyber attacks. I'm shocked we haven't been hit with a cyber attack yet.
Well, I kind of I talked about this, I think a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, about it could be very, don't be surprised if we find ourselves in a situation where the only people or way to communicate within the United States are the old ham radio operators. Because cell phones are down and the cell phone systems are down. And the only way people are talking is getting out that old HW18 or the 2-meter and doing their thing. KA1MIV right here, by the way. So I've been thinking I gotta dig out the old radios in the attic somewhere and see if I can set them up in a condo. For those 2 meters, for those old HW18s, you need a 102-foot wire antenna. So they're not real easy.
Do you have a mobile unit?
No, I did. When I was a younger guy, my car had.
You better get another one.
Yeah.
You better get another one.
Because that's where it's going to. I mean, it could very well be that they could wipe
All right,
this out.
have a good one.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Mark.
Bye.
Appreciate the call. But the thing about that is, too, let's not forget, folks. The cyber attack can come, but the United States Air Force Cyber Division is if not the one of the most sophisticated cyber units. Maybe China might rival it in some shape, form. But we can also inflict as much as we will receive, or we might be able to even inflict more than receive. So it doesn't stop that inconvenience of wiping out the grid or what have you, folks. Could happen. All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining me for the first Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here at AM 830 WCRN. Tomorrow, I will not be on. We will have other programming going on, but Saturday morning,
30 seconds.
I'll be back at 6 a.m. for the political block talk. Myself, Michael Wade, Peter Blute from 6 to 12 noon will take you. So join us there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hey, it's supposed to warm up by Sunday, by the way, as well. And don't forget, follow me on social media platforms at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. Have a good one, folks.